They say obsession doesn't happen all at once. It starts as a glance, becomes a habit, and then grows into something you can't control. And sometimes, the most dangerous person in your life isn't the one who breaks in, it's the one who's already watching. This is the story of the neighbor's window and the man who mistook someone else's life for his own. Autumn in the small American town of Ridgemorne, Pennsylvania, always carried a kind of quiet beauty. Wind-lifted leaves scattered across sidewalks. Porch lights flickered on earlier with each passing day. The scent of wood smoke drifted lazily above rooftops, settling into the town like a familiar blanket. And on Maple Ridge Lane, a peaceful street lined with modest homes and white picket fences, Claire and Mark Hensley lived what most would call an ordinary life. Claire, 32, worked from home as a graphic designer, soft-spoken, gentle, always wrapped in her beige cardigan as she typed by the living room window. Mark, 35, ran a small auto shop on the edge of town. A steady man. Practical. Protective. The kind of husband who never missed Sunday pancakes or Friday movie night. Together, they'd built something simple. Something warm. The kind of life most people dream about and never question. But someone was questioning it. Someone who watched their lights turn on in the morning and off at night. Someone who memorized the rhythm of their footsteps, the sound of their laughter, the moments when they fought, the moments when they didn't. Someone who lived just across the street. His name was Owen Blake. And he was falling deeper into a silence no one could hear. It began as nothing, or at least, that's how Claire described it later. Just a feeling. That faint pressure at the back of her mind whenever she stood near the window. That prickling on her skin as if she were being studied. She would close the curtains a little earlier. Turn off the lamp near the window. Nothing dramatic. Nothing alarming. Just precaution. At least, that's what she told herself. Meanwhile, across the street, Owen Blake sat in the dark, the glow of a single lamp reflecting in his pale blue eyes. In front of him, a notebook filled with scribbles. Rough sketches of Claire. Notes about when she opened the blinds. When she left for groceries. When she sat on the couch and ran her fingers through her hair. He wasn't dangerous, he told himself. He wasn't a creep. He was just interested. People didn't notice him, they never had. He lived alone, worked nights at the feed mill, and kept mostly to himself. But Claire, she noticed things. In his mind, she would understand him. If she just gave him a chance. And on the night of October 17th, Owen decided that chance was finally coming. It was a Friday evening, cold, mist curling across the lawns, porch pumpkins starting to collapse on stoops. Mark was running late from work. Claire reheated leftover pasta, humming softly in the kitchen. At 7:42 p.m., she walked past the living room window and paused. Someone was standing across the street. A silhouette. Still. Facing her home. She froze, heartbeat stuttering. The figure stepped back into the shadows. And Claire, shaken but trying to be rational, pulled the curtains shut. At 8:03 p.m., the power flickered. Once. Then again. Mark still wasn't home. At 8:11, a soft tapping echoed from the side of the house, like a fingernail against glass. Claire held her breath. Another tap. She stepped closer to the window, hands trembling as she lifted the curtain just an inch. Nothing. Then, the motion lights snapped on, and someone darted out of view. Claire stumbled back, whispering, "Not again, not again." By the time Mark pulled into the driveway at 8:26, she was shaking so badly she could barely speak. He reassured her. Check the yard. Everything looked normal. But something had already crossed a line. Across the street, from behind his blinds, Owen Blake went still, watching Mark's arms around Claire, watching her bury her face in his chest. The anger rising inside him was quiet at first. Then consuming. "That should have been me," he whispered to no one. The next morning, Claire noticed something in the yard. A small, folded piece of paper wedged beneath the back steps. Her name was written on the front. Inside, in slanted handwriting. "You're not safe with him. I can protect you. You don't have to pretend anymore." Mark insisted they go to the sheriff. Claire only nodded. At the station, Sheriff Tom Keller listened carefully. He knew Owen Blake. Knew he kept to himself, Knew he'd struggled after losing his mother the year before. But this sounded different. He called Detective Sarah Muldoon, who specialized in harassment cases. Muldoon didn't hesitate. She visited Owen's house the same afternoon, but no one answered the door. Inside, she heard something faint, a rapid clicking sound. Like a camera shutter. She noted it. Filed it away. Because if the situation escalated, she'd need to return. Meanwhile, Owen stared through his upstairs window, watching Claire hand the note to the sheriff. He gripped the windowsill until his knuckles turned white. "Why are you telling them?" he whispered. "You're supposed to trust me." And in that moment, something inside him broke. Over the next 48 hours, Muldoon began piecing together a timeline. Neighbors reported seeing Owen outside late at night. One elderly woman, Evelyn Marsh, said she'd spotted him standing in the bushes behind the Hensleys' mailbox. At first, it sounded like a trespassing case. A disturbed neighbor. A situation that could be de-escalated. But late Sunday night, the investigation changed. Claire woke to the sound of glass shattering downstairs. Mark bolted upright. Claire grabbed her phone, whispering to 911. Footsteps. Slow. Measured. Inside their living room. Mark grabbed the baseball bat he kept behind the bedroom door. Claire crouched behind the dresser, whispering, "Please hurry, please hurry." Detective Muldoon and Sheriff Keller arrived in under 6 minutes. What they saw as they entered the house stayed with them for years. Owen Blake, standing in the middle of the Hensleys' living room, holding Claire's sweater in both hands. Smelling it. Whispering, "She needs me." He didn't fight. Didn't run. He simply looked at Claire and said, "You should have let me in." But the real horror came during the search of his home. Muldoon found a wall covered in photos of Claire, taken through her windows, or journals filled with obsessive entries, or a list of the couple's schedules down to the minute, or audio recordings from a small microphone planted near their back steps, or a blueprint of their house, and, hidden in a locked drawer, a box containing scraps of Claire's personal items, receipts, a discarded grocery list, a strand of hair. It was clear. This wasn't a crush. It was a long-term, escalating fixation, one that had been building for nearly a year. The trial moved quickly. Owen Blake was charged with felony breaking and entering, stalking, harassment, or attempted kidnapping, and unlawful surveillance. Detective Muldoon's evidence was airtight. During sentencing, Claire couldn't bring herself to speak, but Mark did. He stood before the court, voice shaking, and said, "You didn't fall in love with my wife. You fell in love with the idea of owning her." Owen showed no emotion. He was sentenced to 28 years in state prison with mandatory psychological treatment. Ridgemorn slowly returned to normal, at least on the surface. But the Hensleys were changed. They installed cameras, replaced windows, moved Claire's desk away from the living room. And even then, there were nights when Claire felt that old familiar prickling sensation. That echo of eyes on her skin. Not because someone was watching, but because someone had. And it takes years for the body to forget that kind of fear. Obsession is a quiet thing. It grows in the dark, fed by fantasy, by loneliness, by the lies people tell themselves. And the most frightening part? You almost never see it coming. Because the person who threatens your safety might not break down your door at all. He might live right across the street and wave politely every morning. In the case of Owen Blake, justice was served. But the cost was the one thing Claire could never get back. Her sense of safety in her own home. So I'll leave you with this question. Do we ever truly know the people who live just beyond our windows? Thank you for watching. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button for more untold stories, and make sure you click the notification bell so you don't miss our next case.